Welcome to the Beau Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. When politicians lie or make mistakes, they become targets of wrath by the public. But sadly, we've come to accept lies because they seem to be par for the course in Washington, D.C. Whether it's read my lips, no new taxes, or I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. We have seen it on both sides of the aisle. But the lying seems to get overlooked when it shouldn't be. We should demand more honesty from our politicians. Lying should not be part of the job. President Joe Biden has repeatedly lied over his tenure in D.C., most notably about his son Hunter's business deals overseas, and how they used that relationship to profit, perhaps at America's expense when it comes to foreign relations. The recent recovery of classified documents from his offices and his residences has been a major pot calling the kettle black moment in the wake of the Mar-a-Lago raid. But today, I want to spin the microscope over to the GOP, where a new Republican majority has taken over after the 2022 midterms, indicating a shift in operation, which Speaker Kevin McCarthy has made a priority. He has stripped Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff of their committee assignments on the Intelligence Committee, after Schiff deliberately lied over and over again about Russian collusion with Donald Trump, and after Eric Swalwell was found to be a major national security risk from his relationship with a Chinese spy who fled the country. Neither of those guys should be on committees, much less in Congress. But a new House Republican is creating quite a story as well. His name is George Santos, who comes from Brazilian parents and grew up going to school in Astoria, Queens. Santos moved to Brazil from 2008 to 2011, and a journalist there, João Fraga, claims to have interviewed Santos when he performed in drag under the name Kitara Ravache. In mid-January, Santos denied those allegations as categorically false, but then later issued a statement saying he, quote, was young and had fun at the festival, unquote. He left Brazil around 2012 while a wire fraud case was being made against him. He returned to New York and then to Florida. In 2018, using the name Anthony DeVolder, Santos knocked on the door of Republican Vicky Palladino, who was running for New York State Senate. He took some campaign signs to help her, but little was heard from him after that. Santos first launched a campaign for Congress in 2019, and in 2020 began working for Harbor City Capital, an alternative investment firm. After April 2021, Santos started the DeVolder organization, where he claims to have attained most of his wealth, which managed $80 million in assets. In 2020, Santos ran for the House of Representatives in New York's 3rd District as a Republican against Democrat incumbent Thomas Suozzi. Santos was an unknown candidate with little experience, and Queens Republicans were unsupportive. But Santos proved to be a formidable campaigner, raising substantial funds and only losing to Suozzi 56 to 43%, which was impressive considering his lack of support and the fact that the GOP didn't even back anyone since it was in a pandemic year. Santos refused to accept his defeat, claiming that there had been election fraud in his race. Shortly after his 2020 loss, he started a PAC to begin immediately running again. Because some of his past was in a shroud of doubt and concern, such as Harbor City Capital's misdeeds, he agreed to let his campaign do a vulnerability study on him, which revealed such problematic results that it was suggested that he drop out. Santos denied any problems and refused to drop out. Running unopposed for the GOP nomination in New York's 3rd District, he defeated Democrat Robert Zimmerman. It was the first time two openly gay men were opposing one another. And while Democrats poured $3 million into Zimmerman, Republicans largely stayed out of the race. Yet Santos somehow won. He flipped the district red and helped Republicans take back control of the House. On January 11th, 2023, 4 Republican New York congressmen who had also been elected in 2022, Anthony D'Esposito, Nick LaLota, Nick Langworthy, and Brandon Williams, called for Santos to resign. 2 other freshmen from New York joined them in that call. Santos has refused to resign, but has now stepped down from his assignments on 2 committees while investigations are underway. He's managed to retain the support of Speaker Kevin McCarthy, as well as top Republicans Steve Scalise and Elise Stefanik, who need George Santos for critical House votes. When these allegations came under the spotlight in the wake of his election, here's what he told host Tulsi Gabbard.
The first question I really want to ask you, now that all of this has been revealed, is what does the word integrity mean to you?
Well, Tulsi, thank you for having me. To answer your question, integrity is very important. And like I said to the New York Post, embellishing
what does
my
it mean,
resume was
though?
a mistake.
What does it mean? Because the meaning of the word actually matters in practice.
Of course, it means to carry yourself in an honorable way. And I made a mistake. And I think humans are flawed, and we all make mistakes, Tulsi. I think we can all look at ourselves in the mirror and admit that once in our life we made a mistake. I'm having to admit this in national television for the whole country to see, and I have the courage to do so because I believe that in order to move past this and move forward and be an effective member of Congress, I have to face my mistakes, and I'm facing them. The reality is that I remain committed to doing everything I set forward in my campaign. I'm not a fraud. I'm not a fake. I didn't materialize from thin air. I worked damn hard to get where I got my entire life. Life wasn't easy. It didn't start off easy. As I've said it many, many times, I come from abject poverty. I made some mistakes, and I own up to them. And now I want to put this past me so I can deliver for the American people.
The thing is, Congressman-elect, integrity means, yes, carrying yourself with honor, but it means telling the truth, being a person of integrity. And if I were one of those in New York's 3rd District right now that the election is over, and I'm finding out all of these lies that you've told, not just one little lie or one little embellishment, these are blatant lies. My question is, do you have no shame? Do you have no shame in the people who are now you're asking to trust you to go and be their voice for them, their families, and their kids in Washington?
Tulsi, I can say the same thing about the Democrats and the party. Look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been lying to the American people for 40 years. He's the president of the United States. Democrats resoundingly support him. Do they have no shame? I've made this very clear.
This is not about the Democratic Party, though. This is about your relationship, frankly, with the people who've entrusted you to go and fight for them. And I think one of the questions that really probably hits home to a lot of people is are you Jewish? We've got a letter that your campaign sent out earlier this year, which reads as follows. As a proud American Jew, I've been to Israel numerous times for educational, business, and leisurely trips. You said there in that letter that you are, quote, a proud American Jew. How do you explain that?
My heritage is Jewish. I've always identified as Jewish. I was raised a practicing Catholic. I think I've gone through this. Even I've not being raised a practicing Jew, I've always joked with friends and circles, even in the campaign, I'd say, guys, I'm Jewish. Remember, I was raised Catholic. So, look, I understand everybody wants to nitpick at me. I'm going to reassure this once and for all. I'm not a facade. I'm not a persona. I have an extensive career that I worked really hard to achieve, and I'm going to deliver from my experience because I remain committed in delivering results for the American people. I campaigned on inflation. I campaigned on crime. I campaigned on education. I campaigned on delivering resolve for the American people. That's what the people of the 3rd Congressional District heard me on and on as I campaigned.
First of all, kudos to Tulsi Gabbard for asking some great questions. She's better than most of the barking talent on network TV. Santos merely relegates his lies to making a mistake. But her point is, a mistake can be made, but what does integrity actually mean? Because if you have no integrity, you can make as many mistakes as you feel are necessary. And Santos pivots his lying to Biden's lies. And we all know that 2 wrongs don't make a right. Santos's lies go beyond mere embellishments, but he thinks that voters and his constituents don't care, and that it would go above their heads to explain all of his fabrications. You can't deflect by saying the other party does it, so I can do it too. So let's go through the fabrications that he's accused of and get down to the nitty-gritty. Of the lies that have been raised, one is that he is Jewish, with Santos saying that even though that he was raised Catholic, his maternal grandmother was Jewish, who fled Soviet-occupied Ukraine. Well, it seems his grandmother was actually born in Brazil. Santos says he never claimed he was Jewish, but rather he was Jew-ish, only due to the fact that his grandmother has Jewish heritage. On the campaign, he had described himself as an American Jew and a Latino Jew. Santos has used the name Anthony Zobrovsky to fundraise for a pet charity, using that name to link him to Ukrainian Jewish ancestry. Santos has claimed that his mother worked in the World Trade Center as a female financial executive and survived the 9/11 attacks caught up in ash and soot. But her 2003 visa application stated that she was a domestic worker or a home care nurse and that she had not been back in the United States since 1999. Of his fibs on his education, he claimed to have attended the Horace Mann School, an elite prep school in the Bronx, but they have no record of his attendance. He said that he has a bachelor's degree from Baruch College in his class's top percentile. He has since admitted to lying about graduating from any college. He claimed to hold an MBA at New York University. That claim appears to be false, just like his other education claims. Santos has called himself a seasoned Wall Street investor and financier, and that he worked for Citigroup and Goldman Sachs. His campaign website says he, quote, began working at Citigroup as an associate and quickly advanced to become an associate asset manager in the real asset division of the firm, unquote. He later told the New York Post that his employment claims about working at Citigroup were a poor choice of words. Come on, man. He claimed that his family was wealthy and owned a number of rental properties in New York, but he admitted to the Post that that claim was false, and he had no properties as of 2022. Santos has claimed that he's been robbed on 2 different occasions in New York, and also that he had his house vandalized, but never made a single police report to corroborate his claims. In 2008, Santos forged checks from a man whom his mother was caring for. He did this to purchase $700 worth of clothing. That case got archived because Santos could not be located. But as of this month, prosecutors are reviving the charges now that his whereabouts are obviously known. You know, he's starting to remind me of Frank Abagnale from Catch Me If You Can.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to have to tell you, your son is fudging checks.
I have a payroll check here I'd like to cash.
I'm working part-time at the church now. Just tell me how much yours and I'll pay you back.
$1.3 million.